All right. We are now officially starting our stream. And my computer even recognized Majora's Mask. It's a beautiful day. Lovely. Hello everyone. And by everyone, I mean the one viewer. Which is probably Ren.
It's not me.
Oh,
did you know?
It might be me.
Somebody else.
Welcome.
Hi, David.
What?
Hi, David. Watching David.
Hi. Oh, hey, Ludo Scholar. Hey, thanks for hanging out. So I am David. I run fan game Follies, and today we're playing some more Majora's Mask Randomizer, and I am joined by...
Hi, I'm Ren. I'm a first-year master's student at UWM in English, and I'm preparing for a secret surprise later tonight.
We're doing a secret surprise. Very secretive.
Very secret, very serious, very play.
I haven't played this in 2 weeks. So I literally have no idea what's going on. So this will be interesting.
You got it. You got it. It's not a question. The P-hats won't kill you. That's not how they work.
That's true. So I need to check out my emo tracker, which is my little thing on the left-hand side. And I need to figure out what I can do and what I can't do. So, the weird thing about this randomizer, and Ren, I wanna hear your thoughts about this too. The weird thing about randomizing this game is that there's so much emphasis in the side quests on like the sequence of things you can do and when they happen, that like sometimes in this game, even though the logic dictates that like you can always get, say, like the gold dust before the second day, though just like the inherent like randomness of this thing makes it a lot harder to get back into like the rhythm of the actual game, of like the base game, which I think like makes it more interesting but also makes it more difficult. Such as me right now, where like I know where the gold dust thing is. If you like Fleetwood Mac, Gold Dust Woman is a great song. Right, but like I have to do a certain number of steps in order to get the gold dust again, and that it's just like something that's not as readily available, you know.
Sure.
So it's more difficult.
I can see that. Yeah. So, how would I put this? You know, there's this issue that I run into with big open world games often, that I cannot, when I leave something like Final Fantasy 15, I can't figure out where I was with it. And so I have to play it very straight. And that game is very formulaic. Like, there's only so many things you can do to like achieve, I don't know, like to do things in that game. There are only so many modes of play that are baked into the game. It's a very formulaic open world title, but I still lose track of it because there's so much of it. This sounds like it's related, that like when your progress is always random, maybe it feels like there's more to do, or
Yeah.
it feels like you have less access to those things, and so you're like, crap, what can I have done? I mean, really, because your experience with the game is being altered always.
Yeah.
As you play, in a way that it isn't in the regular.
It's always already altered.
Oh my god, are we just gonna kill that phrasing?
I love that phrase so much. I learned about it like 2 years ago, and I'm like, y'all, everything is always already something. But I think it's interesting because I've played this, and I've also played things like let's see if I can reach this. No, I can't. Okay. I've also played the randomizer for Ocarina of Time. And so, like, the randomizer for Ocarina of Time was made before the randomizer for this game. By different people, but basically kind of using the same logic software. And then changing it, you know, to fit the game.
Sure.
But I think, right, the process of randomization for something like Majora's Mask. Hey, Tambalaya.
Hey.
But right, the process of randomization for a game like this, where there is a hard deadline on some things, right, is a different form of altering gameplay than it would be for Ocarina of Time, if that makes sense.
Well, sure, and I think that obviously there's a lot of different things that determine that, but one of the things about this game, in terms of what makes it hyper unique, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is the way that it handles its temporal relationships. Mm-hmm. Specifically, this idea that failure in I didn't do this in time, it matters and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with a rewinding mechanic in a game or something, then trying to randomize within that framework, I mean those two mechanics stack in interesting ways, and I can't conceptualize exactly how that ends up. I know one of the things about I think that exact issue though is what makes Majora's Mask adaptations so attractive, be they animations or alternate reality games or whatever else, right? Because you've already got this interesting conceit baked in. The world ends unless I figure out a way to go back and try again. And a question from Ludo Scholar. Because of the time restraint, right? What about that challenge makes the randomization hit different, which is kind of the same thing we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think part of this comes from also the fan-ish nature of the randomizer, is that you probably are already someone who kind of has a working knowledge of the game itself. You're probably, I mean, you might do the randomizer first. I'm not saying it's not possible, but the randomizer and most general fan works, right, are created for fans. And so you already kind of have this base knowledge of what Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are. They have distinct atmospheres. Now, well, I guess I shouldn't say aesthetics, but in some ways aesthetics, right? And the most distinct thing is the temporal element, right? That is the one thing that really distinguishes between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And because so much of the game is about temporality, when you add in the spatial weirdness of the randomizer, right, where the things you expect to appear in a specific place is not there, right? It's in a different space. Majora's Mask then has both a spatial element, right? So you add this spatial randomization, where you expect something to appear is not there anymore. You also have, in Majora's Mask in general, you already have this temporal manipulation that you don't expect from the Zelda franchise, right, when you first play it, and then is also just different from how you play other Zelda games. So it feels like there's this dualness in both temporal manipulation in Majora's Mask that separates it from other Legend of Zelda games, and then you also have this now spatial randomization that is different from how you play a Zelda game, obviously. So I'm trying to think of the temporal elements are more apparent, which then makes when you do a spatial transformation, I think a little more pronounced, if I'm making any sense at all.
Yeah, and I think to some extent you have to, when considering the space a game takes up in that particular way, you have to fold time and space, where your sense of time and chronology is itself a planar space that you navigate, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking this is something that becomes really pronounced in a fan work like Jedusible or Bend Round, the whichever name you know it by. The ARG, where players in the second act had to choose what songs they wanted to play to affect the game world. And, that has some effects. But one of those things is, well, we could always Song of Time. And the thing about the Song of Time in a rigid game world, like in, say, Majora's Mask proper, you always know how it's going to affect you. But when you're dealing with a puppet master, you never know exactly how that puppet master is going to affect you. Mm-hmm. And because you don't necessarily know what space you're hopping into, time becomes a sense of space in a different way than it would otherwise. I think the randomizer maybe accomplishes something close to that feeling. If I had to make a guess, I'm not playing it, where I can make these changes to the game world, but I have no clear assurance that things are going to be exactly as I left them, or exactly as I expect them to be.
Yeah, and I think, because I'm thinking especially about the CFP that just came out, for work about queer temporalities, and it's like in games, movies, and literature, I think, were the three things. And I was like, first of all, there are more creative works than that. But anyway, what I think is interesting about that, right, is at least in the research and fandoms I've done, there seems to be a lot of CFP. There seems to be a lot of like queer interest in the Legend of Zelda series overall, but also particularly in Majora's Mask. And then, so like, there's like this queer fandom to it. And I'm like trying to figure out, like, is that queer aesthetic? Is that queer temporality? What is that? And then you also add on this randomizer element to it, which makes it even like more complicated. And so like from my research, which focuses mostly on fandoms, I'm also thinking about like the temporal reality in relation to the CFP and how like the randomizer makes things difficult to parse out, or maybe a little more complicated, right? A more complex network of symbols.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, especially, you know, aesthetics are such a hard thing to define. It's like when you get into affect and you're like, well, what is affect? It's like, oh, this is abstract. Fuck. And so, and in a lot of ways, queerness by nature is abstract. So it's hard to know exactly where, like, if it's even like, I mean, clearly to some extent there's a relationship with a text where a text will generate what we might call, you know, queerness or something that could be queered by the viewer. But it's sometimes I think it's hard to like necessarily demonstrate that in like a physical way through the game space, you know?
Yeah.
We can attach it to things, but like, is it being generated? I don't know if we can ever fully get a game or suggest that a game text itself is generating something like that, or if it's always a relationship with the viewer, you know?
Yeah. So speaking of things, temporality and space, I need to, well, I don't need to, but I can if I want to, so I'm going to try to. There's this secret wall here, and I need to wait until 10 o'clock anyway to get to the next mini game I have to do, so I might as well try and do this while I'm here. It's invisible, and normally you wouldn't be able to climb it or really do anything substantial with this section of the game until you go and find like the dead Goron, whose visage you take when you take his mask. And because in this game, right, the items are all randomized, but some are still important, and still are like physically in the environment. There's hot spring water that's only available in 2 locations in this section, one of which is at the top of this shrine, or at the top of this invisible wall here. And so usually you wouldn't even encounter this hot spring until you like find the dead Goron and you get the Eye of Truth, or the Lens of Truth. But for me, because I know this wall is here, I can try to scale it, even though I might be failing to do so right now. But just another way thinking about temporality in space that's interesting.
Yeah, for this, I guess, like you said as much in our little Slack message, but I guess today is all temporality stuff, and in that case, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, so, and this is something that I think like is somewhat splitting hairs, but it's always a question to ask. I mean, I think clearly in this case, I guess I should just broaden the question out. Where does queerness in time occur when a game creates something that bucks the sort of constraints of a genre exterior to the work, or is it created by, more specifically, queering the time relative to the game itself, right? Like I think of something like a randomizer turning this game into something like what we might call a Metroidvania, right? Which is not really the core design principle. I mean, clearly there are certain Zelda games that take more or less after that kind of tradition of, oh, you can pick these things up whenever and wherever you want. But like relative to, say, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, that's literally the core design philosophy, right? Not the case here.
No.
I guess what I think, maybe I'm asking the wrong question. Maybe it's a question of, is there a difference in the queerness that is generated by changing a work or changing the constraints versus changing the constraints of a genre, you know?
Yeah, and it's really hard to figure out too, because like this is what I'm encountering with my just writing I'm very limited, so I'm nowhere near an authority on it, right? But because queerness is such a socially articulated identity, as well as this mode of theory, it's hard to like say like this is queer for all people at all times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like I'm not even gonna try to do that, right? But we can think like maybe, oh gosh.
And I may be being a bit too concrete about abstract things. I have a really hard time with queer theory, not because I have some like innate dislike of it, but just because my most understood theories come out of structuralism, which are very much the opposite of of the abstractness of queer theory.
Ooh, I got the mountain title deed.
So, nice.
Which I think now I can go to the Zora area and sell stuff there, which is good.
Nice.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because and I think part of my dissertation is gonna be about how queerness, so I'm gonna be writing about queerness, queer fandoms of Japanese video games, which might seem like a very arbitrary decision, but the reason why I want to focus try as much as I might to focus on the U.S. because I want to look at specifically like geopolitical conceptions of queerness, which I think is just not something that's really considered at all in I shouldn't say at all, not dominantly considered in queer game studies. And a lot of queer game studies seems to have like the U.S. or Europe or
and
Western
assumed Eurocentrism, basically.
Yeah.
I get that.
Through no like fault of anybody, right? But there is this, and I'm also interested in how like our thoughts of queerness relate to Orientalization, because it's such a huge history of Eastern Asian media in the U.S. And just Eastern Asians in the U.S. in general, right? It's like, so I can maybe think of Majora's Mask as something that's like queer to me, but there might be like a genre for that within, or a form of storytelling that is that way, in certain communities, including Japan as a country, or certain certain like myths and legends, right, that have a similar concept to it. But for me, because I'm like this U.S. consumer of it, I'm like, oh, this thing's temporality is different, so that means it's queer when it might not actually be in the country of its origin, right? So so there's all these weird like geopolitical consequences and networks of signs and signifiers, right? That I think can be explored more in game theory and in games.
No, I absolutely agree. It's something that I've been coming up against a lot because of
I got Cafe's mask. Ooh. Sorry, that's exciting.
No, it's fine. I mean, the randomizer. We're here for the randomizer, right?
Yes.
Also, that's a great like moment. I'll explain why the Goron is so just tasteful today a little bit later. But one of the things I've been running up against, thinking about Genshin Impact specifically as a game, but also Octopath Traveler. I have like my connections and love for that game. Is there are characters that we as Westerners read as queer, where I have to ask myself, are is that the like, I mean, there's no right or wrong way to read a character, but like, is that a product of my attitude towards how characters should look at a game versus, you know, another culture's attitude about how characters should look at a game? Or I shouldn't say should, but dominantly look. Expectations, basically. Specifically, this is about the character Venti from Genshin Impact. I don't know if you've seen the character. You know, by all means, anybody who wants to go look up an interesting character design that I love very much, you know, go check it out. But like, yeah, this is coming off the Therion conversation, hard sell. You know, me and a lot of people that I know read a lot of the Genshin Impact characters as, you know, queer in some way, shape, or form, especially Venti, because Venti is particularly androgynous. And like, I know to some extent it's like, well, you know, read the character how you want. You know, if you find something in it that's valuable to you to read it that way, then fantastic. But there is some desire not to like misrepresent the cultural conditions that created that product. And so, you know, I read Venti as this like genderqueer individual. People who I know who are queer read Venti as this genderqueer individual. But like, you know, say I'm about to write some research on Venti as a character and the, you know, reaction to that character. You know, am I right to assume that the creators had considered this to be a queer character, or is this just a design paradigm that I'm not aware of as a Westerner?
Yeah, and I think, right, and that conversation can also, like, I think it's most, like, obviously articulated in, you know, a character like that. But it's also something to think about in terms of space and time, too. That, you know, if we're going to say that some things have, like, a queer time to it, and I think, like, intellectually, right, a lot of it is like anti-normative, which like, if queerness is anti-normative, that's not specific enough for me, because it needs to be a historically articulated norm. And that's also what made me interested in another CFP. I'm not going to contribute to it, but I'm excited to hear about it. And to read it is, there's another call for an edited volume about like expanding and messing with the definition of queerness in general. And in it, they mentioned that some researchers argue that like what we think of as normative is so unspoken that we don't actually know what it is, that we'll just use normative as something like to put queerness against. But if we never define what it is, or have like articulate this is the norm, not like this is the rule, right, but this is like this socio-historical context, then that also just like kind of eliminates a lot of the effective work we can do when we talk about like something that might be quote unquote non-normative.
Yeah. And Luda, I don't know if you're familiar with Cowboy Bebop at all.
I know it exists.
Okay. Well, I do want to acknowledge that Ludo Scholar brought up Ed in Cowboy Bebop, and that's another great example. And if anything, it's like the pinnacle example for me, because like the localizers clearly thought that like setting Ed up to be a queer character, or at least a character that is interpreted as queer by others, and their gender being something of an object of mystery, was going to be, you know, relevant to the show in some ways. And, you know, I'm not going to speak as to whether it's handled poorly or well, but I don't know if that was a choice of the localizers or if that was a choice of the original team. And that's the other thing about these kinds of cultural products, is that, like, you know, Biding knowing the language and like, oh my God, how do you ascertain the difference between somebody saying, well, this is how I read it, and this is how an American audience is going to read it, versus, God, that mask is creepy as shit. Way to stop me in my tracks. But, like, you know, how is the localizer saying, oh, how do I put this back out, versus, like, how do I, you know, how is this really meant to be created? Because I know different localizers have different methodologies as far as representation in that regard.
Definitely.
At the end of the day, you know, somebody's trying to sell a product.
Yeah.
And you know, that it'd be great if that wasn't a conflicting notion, but it absolutely is.
Yeah, right. So like there's so many different considerations, right? And you can also, there's also you know, if somebody's designing for a Western audience, then does the team deliberately try to like maybe have that to be like there's some discussion of like some Japanese animators or game designers, right? Nope, they're like, I know audiences in America will like this, so I'm going to like make it more like stereotypically quote unquote Japanese, right? Even though it isn't like actually an essence of Japanese storytelling, but because there's that stereotype in the Western audience, they play into that stereotype for the Western audience, right? So then you have like this really weird mix of like orientalization, but also not, but also yes. You know, it gets really messy. It gets messy just when you're talking about like archetypes and stereotypes in Japanese media in general, or international media, right? But then you add in this additional layer of queerness and queer identity, and how queer identity is articulated differently in lived experience outside of Japan versus, you know, in Japan, and it gets very complicated, and that's something I want to explore, you know, in like a 200-page thingy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good topic of exploration. I think any effort to, you know, I get really concerned about abstract concepts that have that lose sense of their concrete grounding. And I know that's not like a nuanced critique of specifically queer when referred to in queer theory. But in my opinion, any queer theory that is attempting to consider the bounds of the term is a useful piece of theory.
Yeah.
Just like any, you know, I tend to have kind of the inverse critique of people who are applying cybertext theory to do just formalism, right? Like if all you're doing is describing the work you're engaging with, and you're never leaving the description of that work to consider other constraints, you're just being an aestheticist. And I'm not an art for art's sake person. I think it's rather reductive.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. Oh my god. Brain is.
I gotta do it.
Sometimes I try to read something, my brain just short circuits. For Tambalaya just mentioned Shion from Kingdom Hearts. I don't know if you're familiar with that design as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's another one where I'm like, and I'm also inclined in that circumstance to think that is clearly an intentional queerness related to the discussions of identity that are present within Kingdom Hearts. But I don't know. I really don't know.
Right? Yeah.
Oh man.
And that's why something for me, right? Like, I think intention is an interesting part of the conversation. Video games, yay! Hey, Cricket, GG7. Right, it's an interesting aspect of it, right? But if you just leave it down to intention, it's not as fruitful. But it's a good way to think through production, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
And regardless of like the intentionality of these things, my little queer heart loved seeing Shion and loves Venti and has a deep attachment to Therion as like a figure, and like, you know, all of these things, regardless of whether or not they were meant to be viewed as queer by American audience, are being viewed as queer by American audiences. And I don't think that is like a problem or something if it's outside of the intention of the work. It's just, you know, if we're trying to ascertain the discrepancy that's occurring between, you know, Japanese culture and American culture, then like, you know, to some extent intentionality is going to have to play into it, or at the very least, like you said, the production dynamics have to.
Yeah.
It's just another one of those things that makes me go, oh man, we need like, I'd love to see some sort of well, I'll leave that to the side. As far as time stuff goes, there's also, I think, like, this interesting question. I mean, I'm sure there are pieces that have been written about this, but I'm interested in the, like, a culture's conception of time.
Mm-hmm.
And like what that means, but have no way of accessing any text that actually engages with that sort of thing. Because certainly, then, if we're assuming that queerness is a kind of societal thing that is based entirely upon it's a culture's relationship with its norms, then the norms that are situated around time become very important in determining temporal queerness.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about how we're reading Borgia for class tomorrow. Bye, Heartcell. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. What was I gonna say? Right. Borgia was talking in the readings for this week about how a lot of habitus comes from the daily operations of and how people spend their time, within a particular community or culture. And right, he talked about how the and I think that's partly where like heteronormative time comes from, right? Is from that. But he talks specifically about how like your part of your identity and how you articulate it is through how close you spend your time to everything else, or to everybody else within your same social category,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which, like, grad student time, oof.
That's the queerest time possible. No wonder all the LGBTQ people go to academia. They're like, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. I want to work a 24/7.
Yeah, well,
and that's queer. No, it's not that. But I mean, it does bring up an interesting point, right, about the social expectations for how you spend your time are a potentially vital part of the normativity of a society. And I would probably, I mean, I'm not a sociologist or an anthropologist, right? But I'm guessing, right, that the explicit connection between time and busyness and resources and production aren't going to be the same, even in a society that is, let's say, both, within the top 20 economies right now, currently, right, the US and Japan. Even that relationship, both fully, neoliberal, all that stuff, right? Like, even though they exist within that same society, I'm sure that there's some difference in conception of what time is and how time should be spent. And whether or not how time should be spent is a question, or the degree of that question, right? That's going to be different.
And we, the construction of time that you jokingly present, which, by the way, like, nice. I definitely would not want to work a 9 to 5, and that is definitely part of the reason that, like, I am interested in art production and this sort of stuff, because it just doesn't gel with my person. I'm a night owl sometimes, and some days I'm up at like fucking 3 a.m., which is still night, but like I'm gonna pretend it's morning. It's a positioning of time around capital, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's when am I to be productive, which is interesting insofar as, well, then there's always the question of like, when am I to be playful, and that becomes a different sort of normative arrangement. But work culture in Japan, from what I understand, is very different than work culture in America, specifically with your relationship to the company and the company's relationship to you, as well as the company's relationship to their property, and their property's relationship with you and your work. And so I while I'm no authority on the subject, and I'm not going to pretend to be or gesture at being one, I would suggest that if we're considering normative time as being based around the economy of a society in some capacity, then the different economic arrangements and cultures within that economic arrangement are going to result in different temporal norms.
Definitely. That's something I talked about a little tiny bit in the recent blog post I did about Persona 5, right, where it is, I would argue Persona 5 definitely centers, well, I mean, like, obviously centers city life when it comes to Japan. But even within Tokyo itself, right, part of the on the ground everyday experience of that game is there's like a multiplicity of people, and I'm not saying it's like diverse in like the
like
two gay people
D diverse
way, like the two gay people, you know, are predators, and that's not good either. But right, but like when it comes to like when you go to Mementos, right, and it's the heart of the collective unconscious of the city of Tokyo, right, it is fundamentally the economic system of Tokyo, right? It is the subway, and it is people in business suits with like maybe a Kamoshida in there, you know, thrown in for the mix when you see him near the end in Mementos, right? So it's like that is what the game is showing you is like the quote unquote heart or like collective unconscious of Tokyo, right? And it's the same thing when it comes to the transition screen too, right? Where like Tokyo itself and the skyline of Tokyo, the business district of Tokyo, is the most important part. And that is interesting, right, in relation to time, especially when like that loading screen is so much about like time moving, right, and time going from one day to the next. So it is this it's an interesting relationship to time there that I don't completely know yet, or I haven't completely you know, figured out what I want it to be yet, but that's something that I think is really interesting too.
Well, it's also this like, you know, the refrain of the loading screens in that game is take your time, take your heart, right? These are two sides of the same coin that are presented. And it's a refrain that is specifically in the opposite direction of the construction of literally every Persona game, which has been, you are always running out of time to do whatever you want if you want to get a perfect run of this. If you want to do this social interaction perfectly, you can't take your time. You're not allowed to. This is especially true in Persona 3. It's gotten more forgiving as time has gone on. And now, I mean, you know, to some extent, I think that's just because it becomes, ooh, a light arrow.
I got my light arrows. And I'm really happy because the latency is very low today, so I'm happy.
Thank you, Twitch gods.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
But you know, it's just such a hard. I don't want to say it's hard to describe, but one of the other things about the Persona series is it's always interested in these in liminal spaces and the way that you characterize a liminal space and what that means. And in a lot of ways, not quite kairotic spaces, but God, I can't remember what the term is for it's not liminal. It's the space that
third space?
No, non-places. That's what it is.
Yep.
You know, this idea that like the midnight hour occurs between midnight and 1 a.m. It is the 13th hour, or it's the midnight TV show that nobody's watching that reflects your inner desires, or it's, you know, the subway, the place you only ever pass through. The tunnel itself, something most people don't even have access to, that becomes, you know, that fleeting glimpse becomes the way that you get to the heart of a culture. And you know, I do think that there's some poetry in that and some truth in that concept, but it is interesting that then, especially with the midnight hour, I feel like they were playing with a lot of concepts they wanted to keep going with in Persona 3, and we can debate whether they've done a good job of that, but like, time is a place, you know?
Yeah.
And in the same thing in Persona 5, time, I don't know if time stops in Mementos. I'm a little too far away from the game to remember, but it definitely, like, your relationship with time in the game in terms of like how does the gameplay go is very different when you're in the other world than it is when you're in the in some ways I feel like the like day-to-day life of Persona is a way to relax from having to fight in Mementos, and sometimes Mementos is a way to relax from having to deal with your social life. You know?
And I was gonna say, I often feel less pressure when I am doing things like Mementos or the Palaces, right? Because I know I can spend as much time in there as I want, and really the only thing that might stop me is, you know, if I run out of resources. Like, basically for me, it's like if I Oops, sorry. I gotta dance. This
No,
is my
well,
favorite cutscene in the game. This is.
Are they doing the gang dance? Like what?
No, it's cool. I think it's cool. All right, this is me defending this scene. So the reason why I think it's cool is because it creates and articulates. I'm using my fun little academic speech here, but I think so. They're dancing here, right? Which is all stupid, and then you have like this shot of the soldier watching, and I think it's interesting how it's like this is one of the few actions in the game where you see someone watching you, and for me that is like an interesting addition to creating the habitus, quote unquote, right, for lack of a better term, of the town, where it's like there is someone who is watching you, which I don't think really happens all that much in the Zelda games, like in these kinds of like throwaway cutscenes. And I always just found that really cool and interesting, like as a kid.
You know, and I think one of the things that attracts me to Majora's Mask in the same way that, in a way that I don't get attracted to any of the other Zelda games, is the same thing that attracts me to Hirohiko Araki's Diamond is Unbreakable, or Part 4 of JoJo. And that is, you spend the entire time in a small town, for the most part. You know, you learn the town and the people who live there, and that is essentially a different construction of the hero than the guy who's traveling the world or traveling Hyrule, you know, to solve this large problem. Now, certainly, you know, the game doesn't totally map onto that narrative tradition or idea. You know, Araki's Part 4 is interested in you stopping one serial killer for the most part. There's a bigger story going on, but it's one serial killer is the threat. And here, you know, the whole world is going to die. But there is a sense in which Clock Town is the world, is the whole world. And I don't think that really happens in other Legend of Zelda games the same way.
Yeah. Which is cool.
I mean, obviously, you know, you can problematize that. I don't think that's like a perfect reading. But what I'll say is that it's more true here than it is in. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe Spirit Tracks, right? The train.
Right, but I think part of the it's the temporality of it, right? Where every citizen feels like a character because they all have a set path that they follow along the 3 days, which might, like, for some people, I guess it depends on how you read it too, right? But for me, it makes it feel like these are lived in characters because they followed the day-to-day operations, right? They have something that they do every day. And for some of them, it changes, right? And the change in that, in what they do is what gives them part of their characterization, right? So I just gave Anju the letter to meet with her tonight, right? If I don't do that, she doesn't meet with me at midnight on the first day. But for me, like, by giving her a thing and seeing how she reacts to it and how she changes her, how she spends time, that tells me something about her character, which I think is something you can't really get in other stories of the Legend of Zelda universe, because you really what happens is, like, you give somebody something and their character is forever altered from then on, right? Whereas now, because it's cyclical, you have the ability to see, like, this is what this person does differently depending on how I interact with them. And to me, that sounds cool.
Yeah. There's a piece that I was working on, and it didn't come to fruition because Seas 2020 obviously got, well, was it 2019 or 2020? I think it was 2019. 2019 got wrecked by the pandemic. 2020, my bad. and I was working on a piece about horizontal metalepsis. Oh, thanks for joining us. Does Deegs play?
Yeah, thank you.
The difficulty, or like one of the thing I was working on was this idea, like, of horizontal metalepsis in some respect. Now, there's like, narratology has been, like, very anti the idea that you can cross diegetic bounds anywhere that isn't vertical. I think we've talked about this before. And the conception of that, I think, comes largely out of the fact that a lot of narratological stuff is based on film, and it's based on the relationship that linear continuities tend to have with each other as far as the viewer's experience goes. The thing about games that make them a little bit different, though, is that you can have like multiple chronologies occurring within the same session and the same world. And when you have that happening, multiple continuities of time, I would argue that those things create separate story worlds for the characters. You know, if you stop paying attention to the player's experience with it, and you start paying attention to the idea that like the characters are experiencing this idea, or within their respective spaces, then you can have, okay, well, in this story world, Link does X, Y, Z. In this story world, Link does X, Y, Z. Now, I'm not gonna like balloon that out to like MatPat levels of insanity where like your death is its own story world. I think that is pushing the idea way too far. But I do think that when something happens, say in Undertale, where you've made XYZ choices and Sans goes, you know, in another world you did this essentially, or implies it as much, that is a sort of an ellipsis that's occurring from one story world to another story. There's a transgression occurring, right?
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Majora's Mask is it gives you the perspective that allows you to transgress. You are able to see through your continuous playthrough the discontinuities of other people's lives. And that's interesting. I think like one of the ideas, you know, if diegetic boundary crossing is something that happens because we have an identification with a character or a figure identifies with somebody else, then that suggests some sort of affect or emotional attachment that comes from that sort of relationship. And so, you know, maybe there is a fondness that is built by experiencing the discontinuities of somebody else's life. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that like you can't like model that experience in reality, right? That is purely a mediated thing. Yeah. We can pretend that something like that might be possible, but that's it. And I wonder if that gets into like, you know, if there is something to be said for how the abstract idea of queerness and this very solid structural idea of like a horizontal transgression of narrative boundaries coalesce. But I you know, another thing about narratology is that it's very focused on white texts from, you know, Eurocentric locations. So yeah, what do I know about others? Like, what does Rashomon mean to the narratologist who's only watched American cinema? It means something entirely different than it does to the narratologist who has only watched Japanese cinema.
Yeah, and and it's interesting, right? Because you have trickster, like the trickster mythology, or the trickster within mythology, right? Who is able to transgress stories. Like part of a lot of trickster stories, with something like Anansi, for example, right, is that they appear in different stories, and it's almost, right, and part of their narrative within the mythology is that they're able to go between these usually disparate stories, right? And so, like, in some ways, something like Sans then, right, is doing the trickster, performing the trickster, because he's able to see that he is able to transgress across boundaries between narratives, and he's able to see you do the same thing, right? And so that it adds like an additional thing to it too that I think is interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to like I mean, obviously there are a million different ways to conceptualize a single thing that occurs in, and that's kind of the beauty of the study. But yeah, character archetypes are also like, who is allowed to transgress? And this, I think, in some ways gets back to the performance theory we've been reading over and over again. Maybe it gets back directly to Bourdieu, is the idea of like, you know, who gets to decide the habitus for a group? Like, who sets that precedent for that norm? Who has that power, right? And I mean, there is a question to be said for games where you have the ability to freely play with time. Are you setting that structure, or is somebody else setting that structure and you're reacting to it? I don't know. I think that Majora's Mask is such an interesting game, especially from a randomizer, right? Because in a randomizer, you are constantly reminded of the fact of how much power you could achieve, and the power or lack thereof that you have, or powers. there's a question of like how do you not cope with that, but how do you like how does that make you feel basically? How does that change your relationship with the game?
Right.
Although Majora's Mask is already pretty in that vein on its own.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because it really it is one of those games where like the boundary between the mechanics and the narrative is so slim. Right? Like I'm thinking about how like how in game it says like press the A button to do this, like in the tutorial level, and like some games will be like, isn't it funny that I know that you're playing with a controller, right? And they'll do like little jokes like that. But it is interesting to me that Majora's Mask, right, plays it really straight, right? They never really say, right? They say like the world is gonna end. They don't say like, hey, if you just save at the owl statue before the world ends, you're gonna be fine, right? Or anything like that. So like there is this weird liminal space between the controls of the game and the narrative of the game, and like I don't know. That's also something I'm trying to figure out too.
Well, we take the piss on the ludonarrative dissonance thing all the time because it's absolutely worth taking the piss on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, what a word that I don't know where that came from, but like if somebody like seriously generated that term and thought it had serious explanatory power, then like, oh man, we have nuked the shit out of that term.
well, that article I posted the other day about Australia banning the physical copies of Disco Elysium is they literally like in their thing say the interactivity of the game makes it more dangerous than a film that shows people doing it, right? Because you can press A to take the drug, that therefore requires us to take action against it, right? So
That's
like
interesting.
even though we as scholars might say like interactivity and ludonarrative dissonance and all that stuff can be and should be challenged, right? There's still a lot of people out there who think that just because you press A to do something, that means you're more likely to do it in real life.
It is it's an effective argument to support. I mean, I'll just say it for what it is. It's an effective argument to keep dominant hegemony in place. If a game you're doing that's presenting something you don't like, or reading that or it can be used as a scapegoat because it happens to be representing something is wholly real, then like you can fearmonger quite a bit with that.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'm not gonna there will always this is something with ARGs that you have to be careful about a lot, because any discussion of Slender Man has to involve in some meaningful way the killings that happened in Wisconsin, or the near, was it a near killing? I think it was a near killing that happened in Wisconsin. So you're always gonna have some, especially in really like pervasive media, you're gonna have some people who enter that environment who are not mentally in a place where they can handle that are going to react to it in ways that are not advised, to say the least. But we can't obviously throwing the baby out with the bathwater is not quite the same thing. And honestly, I would delineate a difference between interactive media like a video game and interactive media like an ARG that's professing to be real in some way. That's like saying, in a lot of ways, it's like saying an animated character is the same as a deep fake.
Yep.
So there are things to be careful of, and certainly games broadly are one of those things where we have to make intelligent decisions about what we're representing. But that seems to me to be very similar to the thing that happens every time there's gun violence in the USA, where a bunch of conservative politicians come out and go, well, the guns caused it, it's the well, not the guns caused it, the Call of Duty is to blame. As opposed to something like our gun laws or whatever else. So
yeah, totally.
But all this is to say, I am inclined to think that the concept that like you evoke a different environment in a game when the mechanics differ from the narrative, or the narrative differs from the mechanics, or those things are aligned and resonate. I mean, I really do think like there's something to that idea. And the reason I think, again, is in part because like a lot of what I work with is ARGs, and it makes a hell of a lot of a difference if something is purporting to be real, if the mechanics align with the narrative.
Yeah.
In a way that is very different in a video game. But I still think that effect is not unique to ARGs or unique to say D&D or whatever else.
Right. I mean, you can say like something like War of the Worlds, for example, right, is doing something similar, where like there is this established genre and setup and cultural conception of what radio is and does, and then you play with that to make something appear real. And even if some, even if the majority of the people can like easily tell that it's supposed to be a story, right, because it's so heavily hugs to the genre that it is a part of, and the genre that it is like both like being, I shouldn't say mocking, right, but kind of parroting in order to be perceived as an effective thing, right? That's definitely not new with video games or ARGs or anything like that.
Oh sure, yeah. I mean, like we can push that all the way. And like the mechanics in some ways of like interactive theater production. I think sometimes people think that interactive theater is a new thing. When a lot of morality plays were to some degree interactive, and that's like the 1400s,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, God,
and the
media
newest
that purports to be real is nothing,
right. The newest manifestation of that is like the prom, somebody dying in a car crash at prom and being like they literally took us to the parking lot and they brought in a helicopter. They had the whole scene set up where somebody got hit, and they put a girl who was a junior, right, so it was going to be her first prom that year, and she was in a car accident. They had her parents crying and everything. They brought in a chopper from the hospital to come pick her up and airlifted her over there. They put a fake body in the airlift. But still, right, that is a kind of performative theater that is designed to be interactive. Just emotionally, instead of.
Is that really a thing that?
It's huge. True story? That's a huge thing here in Wisconsin. I thought that was everywhere in the U.S. Then again, we do have the highest capita of drunk driving incidents in the country.
In Virginia, they just put a real car that has been, purportedly real. I mean, I suppose they could fake it, but like, they put a car that was apparently in a drunk driving accident in front of the high school or something. It's not like they don't like fucking play act. That's genuinely traumatizing. What the fuck?
Well, the problem, the thing is, for some people it is, but for me, I was like, I'm not gonna drink and drive. First of all, I came to my prom in a limo. I actually did, because I lived in a suburb. I lived in a fancy ass suburb of the Twin Cities, and my parents weren't rich, but one of my friends' parents were.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Right, but interactive theater or things purporting to be real or interactive, etc., right, is something that is not new to video games at all. But because you have you pressing the button, right, they can make it rhetorically, you can make it seem like that is important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like, this is it's kind of the double-edged sword of media studies, right? Like, we could say we keep saying, because it is critical to the understanding of media, that they have some effect on the user, right? That pressing the button really does make somewhat of a difference compared to watching a film passively. There's a difference in having the implication of agency. Certainly, and it tells different stories and affects different meanings. But we have I think the conflation that occurs when you are doing so. Oh boy, are they coming up? I'm a little behind.
No, it's okay.
Oh gee, they're coming up fast. the conflation that occurs is well, some effect must mean it has every effect, you know, and like it's an elision that causes, or rather, I mean, like if we're switching between like media studies and anthropology discourse for this thing, a metonymy, haha, that really can convince people pretty quickly of like video games having some really disgusting effects. You know, I think I have seen at least one bad Twitter argument that goes something like, why are you guys so, if you guys say that guns in video games don't cause violence, then why are you so concerned about bad representation in games? You know? And that's just, like, that's a really destructive thing to say. And it's clearly fallacious.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, I hate to say it, fallacies are rhetorically effective. So, you know. Oh, the weird stuff that happens in the world. Jesus Christ. So are these guys coming to burn down this house?
They're coming to steal the cows.
Oh. Well, that's...
So if we want to... So this is a cool little... talking about how to tell a story through just controls and... Well, the narrative is part of it, obviously. But the controls are also a big part of it. So in that, typically with Majora, like, Ocarina of Time, right? Z targeting was the big thing that carries over into this. Z targeting is huge addition to games, right? It's a big thing when it happens. In this section, the aliens are not Z targetable. And they are the only enemies in the entire 2 games that I can think of that aren't Z-targetable, right? Even like Ganondorf and Ganon are. So like, it really helps like situate this as like this weird otherworldly alien thing, and makes them somewhat more sinister, right? It could be very easily just like a joke, but by you literally, right, your fairy cannot comprehend what these things are and cannot Z-target it, makes it a little scarier for me as a player.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a that's 101, right? Like that's I'm trying to think of like here, like the one creature in Monster Hunter world that like you can't just go and I don't think you can go and fight him. He has to just spawn randomly, from what I understand, and he's a pain in the ass. I can't remember what is his name? I'm gonna look this up. Hold on.
I forget where the next... Nope, that's not it. Let me check my emo tracker, because this will help me. I need to do those 4 holes with the dungeon songs. I think this might be this one down here, actually. Possibly? We will see. Yep. Oh!
I'm checking for him now. It's just taking me a moment because I just cannot remember his name to save my life. If chat knows it, by throw it out. But like, oh god, this is like monsters in Monster Hunter World. I'll know him when I see him because he's a pain in the ass. And you don't forget people like that, you know.
Yeah. Right, or the one I'm thinking of, his name isn't Mr. Z, but the guy from Resident Evil 2.
Oh, Mr. X.
Mr. X, right? That's another character who like is the undefeatable character enemy is scary too. But like it's interesting that Zelda like flips it where the aliens are like really easy to defeat on their own, right? You hit them with one arrow and they're gone. But you literally can't even like you can't target them and you can't find out more about them because half of the Z targeting, I shouldn't say half, but like part of the Z targeting is right, you can press the button and learn more about the enemy, and you can't even learn more about the enemy even.
Yeah.
Because you can't Z target them.
Yeah, well, absolutely. The monster's called Basil Goose, and what Basil Goose does is he appears in a hunt that you're already in. He can appear anywhere in the world, and he just begins dropping bombs on you.
Oh.
Yeah, and if you're not ready for it, like almost everybody I think who's played Monster Hunter World who has encountered Basil Goose has been one shot by him at least once. Because you're just not
is this supposed to be a play
bomb.
on Beetlejuice?
I think so, probably.
Okay.
But like he just appears and you're like, you don't even usually see him first. It's just, oh, an egg's at my feet. Where the heck did this come from? And then it explodes. And yeah, that sucks. I mean, it feels cheap at first, and you can get cool armor by fighting him. So he's an interesting little Easter egg, and it comes back around. He's not like unkillable or anything, but it is like, oh, holy shit, you know, I have to deal with this guy now. I won't say it's like the most effective use of that I've ever seen, but like if you set up and construct norms in your game and then you divert from those norms, which I think is in a lot of ways, actually, if you consider Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time one textual whole, which I realize takes some stretching, but let's work with it for a second. Then all of Majora's Mask, or not all of it, but substantial parts of Majora's Mask work specifically because they buck the norms of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Definitely, right, and the mirror worldness of it all.
Yeah, which is, you know, something that in the case of like a game like Silent Hill 3 is in terms of reusing assets is something that it was largely criticized for. I don't know if that same criticism existed for Majora's Mask. I've certainly never encountered it.
I don't think so. I think I think reviews were mostly positive beyond it, the 3-day cycle being like so different. I think reviews were mostly positive, but I think also also the Nintendo 64, I don't think really marketed itself as like a graphic competitor to like the PS2 or PS.
Oh, certainly not.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think like,
I mean,
and especially the PlayStation 2, right, is definitely gonna try to be like, we have the best graphics. So that might play into that, right? If one of your flagship franchises reuses assets, that might be a little more of a sin there.
I'm loving this bizarre spin dash thing with the Goron. That's like absolutely fantastic.
So
it looks
good.
awesome to control. By the way, the fun thing about the Goron being so tasteful today is that the every year, or not every year, but that every during the original run of Jaducible on April Fool's Day, a video got released called KingKong.wmv. And yeah, I don't know if that video has aged as well as as it could have, but it was an April Fool's Day joke on like people expecting this to be like a serious update to the ARG, and it turned out to just be a dumb music video meme thing. And today the creator released out that the thing is over, King Kong 2. So you know, for the community, which the Jaducible, God, if we ever like cover Jaducible in an ARG context, there's so much to talk about as far as like how the community's relationship with Alex has changed over the years. Alex being the name of the guy who made it. But like at the very least, it is there is still some goodwill there, you know? Yeah. So, you know, and hey, for anybody who's looking for an interesting web series or ARG in retrospect, it is interesting if flawed. So, you know, there are other web series I would rather suggest people put their time into, but it's certainly, if you thought that the original Ben Drown creepypasta was of interest to you, then it's definitely worth experiencing it in retrospect. And I'm very close friends with the guy who runs the wiki for the Jaducible fandom, so he is a very awesome person. I love fan wiki runners. They can be like,
fan wikis are the best things.
They really are. Fandom sucks and exploits their labor. That being the fandom wiki kind of thing.
Yeah, the company.
The company, yeah. But like fan wiki people, top tier. Oh God! Oh my God!
They keep showing up. Why are all these P hats there? It is making me mad.
God, that guy really just said, I'm about to end his whole career. 4 episodes in, David, and
I love Goron. He is hitting people with his butt, and that is the best thing ever. I love it.
I love that little, like, it's so good. God damn. Oh, the animations of this game are just stellar. Like, everything about this game is no complaints.
Is good.
No complaints. Yeah.
Oh no!
Nope. Oh,
Yeah.
you can't climb walls. That sucks.
No. Shoot, I wish Hard Cell was here because I forget. I think in the normal randomizer, which is what I'm doing, the small key chests are still the same, but the map chests, I forget if they're the same or not. I'm gonna have to double check this.
All right.
Because if they are, then I just need to get out of here. Because if I can't get access to the fire arrows, it's not gonna really matter. Because to beat Got, you have to have the fire arrows to unfreeze him.
Well, you're definitely not going for a speed run here, so I think
No, I'm not doing a speed run. In case anybody, there was somebody who posted on the Majora's Mask randomizer Discord, and they're like, "Can I beat this randomizer in 3.5 hours?" And I'm like, "I can't. I definitely cannot."
Maybe one day you and Eric can team up and do a collab stream where it's a fan game, like a fan randomizer that you're speedrunning. I really would love to see. I really want to do the Kingdom Hearts 2 randomizer that I really always I'm so sorry about names. I could be so bad. The Tambalaya was doing on the Kingdom Hearts 2 stream, or not doing, but talked about on the Kingdom Hearts 2 stream on Scholars Play, because it just sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
But like, I find myself obsessed with GDQ runs of the data bosses in that game that are speed runs. I don't know why. It's just something that tickles me to watch people try to take out these ultra hard bosses really, really, really fast. Oh man, I love the profile. They like. Oh yeah. Well, at least they're not pea hats.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's better or worse, but they're not pea hats.
I think that's better. I think. We'll see.
Do you need to finish this this whole thing with a tier list of Majora's Mask enemies?
I should do a tier list. That'd be fun.
I think tier lists are really cool when they're done like in jest.
They are I told you this before. They're the new top 10s. Because the big thing was the Game Fact top 10s, and now it's all about the tier lists.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I love the
there's
Game
a great
Fact top
JoJo
10s.
localization, bad localization tier list. It's great. Because all JoJo's stands are different song names, so if you don't own the rights to the song, American companies won't let you use those names. So the localizers come up with like the damnedest shit. For Bad Company, they made it Worse Company.
I love it.
That's pretty awful.
So what's interesting is usually, so when you get to a dungeon like this, usually it goes by pretty quickly because you have things like the hook shot or the fire arrows early. I have neither of those things right now. So I have to like go about this dungeon in a pretty standard way.
Oh, actually, that's a good question. So Tambalaya asks, which Majora's Mask masks are S rank?
Or S rank.
What do you think?
S rank masks.
Well, obviously the Fierce Deities mask. That's
well, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the bomb mask. I love anything that lets you like just willy-nilly explode. I think that's fun. Sorry, I'm also trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing in the game. I don't know. Ren, how about you? What do you think? I'm gonna defer.
I think the Zora mask rocks. I really enjoy it.
Oh yes, all the transformation masks are fun.
Yeah,
I would put them all as S rank because they're all thought out well. Yeah,
yes.
They're all well thought out.
I mean, yes. I guess like it depends on like what do you. This is always the thing about tier lists that's kind of fascinating is what do you decide is an S rank? Like what strata are you judging by? And like, what's the unspoken strata when a group of people get together and just say, oh, well, that's clearly S tier, right? Like me saying the Fierce Deities mask is S tier is basically just me saying, oh, well, it's uber powerful.
Yeah.
But I also happen to think the design's really cool.
Yes.
And for that reason, I think the Mask of Truth is also S rank, even if it's not great. It's just that, like, I love the design of the damn thing.
And you can talk to puppies.
And yeah, talk to puppies. Oh, I mean, like, why wouldn't you want to do that in real life? You know? Yeah. I think in that way, tier lists become a game of apples to apples. Oh, great, another close range P hat.
Oh my, and there's another one here too.
Duh!
I hate this so much.
God,
I think this is going to be my last stream of it proper through Serious Play, but I might do it through the rest of it through my channel.
Really? You're moving on. What are you thinking about doing next?
Well, there's a new Pokemon fan game I want to play, so we're gonna play that for a little bit.
I see. Yeah, no, go for it. I'll be interested to see what you come up with. My friend Justin found a new randomizer, quote unquote randomizer. It's not really a randomizer, in the sense that it's not randomizing the levels. It is randomizing something. For Doom Eternal, where they randomize what enemies drop at any given point in time, kind of like the P-Hat thing. But as you can imagine, in a game like Doom, oh my god, that can fuck you over.
Hey, speaking of the Mask of Truth.
Speak of the Mask of Truth. There we go.
All right. So I have that now. That gives me a couple of things, which is cool.
Oh, maybe we just need to invoke the name of the thing you want. Maybe we just need to chant Fierce Deities mask every time you open a chest. Quick, make the game trivial. Please make the game trivial. Nah, I won't make the combat trivial. Anyway.
Yeah. What can I do with that? Oh yeah, I can do the thing at the doggy track now, which is cool. They automatically have it where if you're wearing the Mask of Truth, you always get the correct dog at the doggy track, which is fun. Cool. And this also confirms to me that the major chests in the dungeons also give you things, which is good, because I was wondering where everything was.
Well, there you go. Perfect. Now, I guess the question I have about this randomizer, and this is kind of something just to ask about randomizers in general, is, and maybe you answered this on a previous stream, I know I've been here and there for these. Can this soft lock?
The logic is designed where it will not.
That is good.
Oop. So it is, and if it does happen for whatever reason, there's like a support wiki you can go to I shouldn't say support wiki, like a Discord with like mods who are in charge of the randomizer. You can be like, hey, this very specific stem is not operational, or is
right.
or is so hard to complete to the point of where it is worth getting rid of. And then the team who runs it can then say, like, this very specific run we're not going to like allow to be made anymore.
That's really interesting, if nothing else, because it allows you to, or it's a way of dealing with, it's a way of dealing with contingency, which is always kind of on its face interesting. But the other thing that's quite curious about it is that it's a good reminder that, like, a programmer or set of programmers is not going to be able to anticipate every outcome of their software.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something.
Microsoft has already proven that, but.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, Microsoft can't even like anticipate the basic outcomes of their software. I'm being a little unfair to Microsoft, but
we love to make fun of them.
Yeah,
they're easy to make fun of. Let's say that. Yeah,
it's like making fun of Blackboard. It's like, it's not even trying. But yeah, I thought that's like an issue. I don't know if you've had this issue in your English 102 section, but I've had an issue with where I've noticed a lot of students having a hard time conceptualizing that like software is made by people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You know, which is it's just an interesting thing. Like I don't like. I don't know. I mean, you kind of see. I don't know. I don't want to say you see similar things in terms of like games related stuff. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. I don't really have enough. I don't think I'm authoritative enough to say. But it is an interesting misconception, or at least there's a conception that, like, I guess computers are smart is the misconception, really.
Yeah. Or, right, that computers have been made to be as efficient as possible, so therefore, right, like, you can trust them, or whatever.
Oh, sure, yeah. And I know that's like absolutely
because the best and the
thing.
brightest people in Silicon Valley have done it. So anyway,
yeah. Oh my God. Yep. Not a day goes by that I don't remember that Mark Zuckerberg sure is a person that exists in the world. Jesus Christ, what have we done?
What hath humanity wrought is a very good question.
Where's my Mark Zuckerberg mask for Majora's Mask?
The cafe mask. Or cafe, or however you pronounce it.
Oh.
I always pronounced him
Jesus
cafe,
Christ.
but that's probably not right.
Oh, I see you got to do a little Tokyo drift here. That's great.
Yes.
That's really funny.
It's cute. It's very cute. I like it.
Oh my God.
I need to make sure I'm not missing any of the important chests now. The last time I played this, I had the hookshot and the fire arrows already, so I didn't need to worry about it even.
Oh, because you haven't been in this temple when you weren't playing the randomizer?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I have before, but the last time I played the randomizer.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So you're doing the Pokemon game, and I know, like, I just kind of assume that for the most part, Fan Game Follies is going to focus on Nintendo fan content.
Yes, because that is what I'm a fan of. But
Right.
but I was trying to figure out how to do the Persona 5 randomizer, but the software for that was very difficult to parse out for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I haven't messed with the Persona 5 randomizer at all. I wonder how it accomplishes what it does.
Well, it's hard enough to get because you can only use the PlayStation 3 version of Persona 5. Like, that's the only ROM that's available for it. Or you can do something with your PS4 where you download something directly to your PS4. But I don't really want to do that because they're like, hey, if you do this wrong, it'll like mess up your hardware, and I don't really want to.
Yeah, that's something that, like, I feel like as long as we're with serious play, it's a decision we make at the collab about how to use some hardware that we have as a group, as opposed to like trying to, you know, I don't even know if we have a PlayStation 4. I wouldn't want to do that with my home console for serious play, you know. If I was doing it for myself, then cool, but like that's a different matter. Yeah, I'm not about to. I have a PS4 Pro, and I'm not about to like fucking destroy that thing. Not that I use it very often.
I was like, why can't I stab this guy? And then I'm doing so bad at this. Wow. Oh.
You got a big enough health pool that it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I have the defense boost, luckily, too.
Nice.
But yeah, I kind of want to branch out, but the fan communities I'm in are all Nintendo stuff, you know, because that's... Ooh! Speaking of S-tier masks...
See, I told you, all we got to do is invoke the name of what we want, and RNGesus will provide.
Speaking of MatPat, oh my gosh.
Why are we talking about the devil?
No, it's just,
Nah, MatPat, if you happen to be watching this years in the future, you're not the devil. I just don't like
No.
you
Sorry, I got distracted. No, it's because he's the fans. He's a fan. I'm pretty sure there's like he has a something about the fierce deity mask.
Oh, what, like a theory or something?
Yeah. Okay, so since I don't have the fire arrows, I literally cannot do anything else in this dungeon, so I'm heading out.
Hey man, that was a good haul.
That was. Now I have the Mask of Truth, so I can get some rupees with my little dog. A little dog racetrack at the ranch, and yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about our favorite masks. What about our least favorite masks? I don't like the pig mask because it doesn't do anything.
What? What do you qualify as least? Like again, what do you qualify here?
For me, it's like aesthetically. For me, it's like aesthetically, it's not really that exceptional. It doesn't really do much for the game. It doesn't relate to like a side quest that I really care about. There's no emotional, aesthetic, or ludological investment in it. That makes it F tank. That makes it F rank for me.
I see.
So I would put the pig mask down there because I like the Deku Butler because he has his little cutscene at the end where you find out that the mask you got for your Deku was actually his son, and that's cute. But the problem is you don't learn that till the very end of the game, so it's just like, I just don't really care about him. And yeah, the Danjiro mask is the side quest is just so long that I just don't care about it. How about you?
How do I like? Yeah, I'll be honest. The one that like gets me is just the fucking circus leader's mask. It freaks me out. Like there's not anything else to it. It just makes me a little uncomfortable.
And the only thing it
makes me a little uncomfortable.
The only thing it does is make the like the defense of the carriage a little easier.
Yeah,
when you do the carriage side quest. That's the only thing it does.
Chimera's mask, the one you had on for the dance also. Like, I have a little bit more attachment to that because I think it's interesting, but it also is absolutely nightmare fuel. So...
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I feel like I can't complain too much about whatever nightmare fuel is in this game because
the whole thing's kind of nightmare fuel, but...
Yeah, and also it's the damn like I feel like if I say I enjoyed the deducible ARG, I don't get to like say that something makes me uncomfortable about the horror that exists in this game because oh my god, if Alex did anything, it's turned the like amalgamation shit up to 11. But something about that circus mask, I don't know, man, freaks me out. Don't like it. A little uncanny.
Yeah, and it doesn't do much overall for you, so that doesn't really help. The all night mask is kind of like meh too. I like that it's like a lacy. So cool. I like that it's a lacy kind of thing. Like that's a cool aesthetic, but it also just again doesn't really do much.
This is adorable. Oh,
I know, right? So cute. Of course, my dog's winning.
Yeah.
Very cute. Very adorable.
I think, like, if this scene was the rest of my life, I'd be pretty happy. Like, we can just pause living right here.
Just exist on the space. Well, and I kind of want to go next door. I love the Bremen mask. I think that's really cute. Oop. I just got a rupee from that. Nope, I do not want to play again.
Nice.
So the next thing I have to do now is I have to go meet up with Cafe, and when he gets the letter that I put in the mail.
Oh, wow.
Because that is one of the few things I can do now. Since that got me nothing. Let's see. I could figure out how to climb up the cliff, I guess. I'm gonna retry and do that again. We'll see what happens. Because I have time. I'm gonna grab my phone so I can follow along. Any other masks that you're thinking of that are just like meh?
Yeah, I'm sure there are others, but they're just not on my mind. And to be honest, there are like this game is really like has existed in my periphery for so long, but I've never emulated it, nor do I own like an N64. So I've experienced it, but playing it is not something I have done for myself.
Oh.
So yeah, it's one of those weird things that because I did the ARG that some fans made, you know, I know a lot about it, but like I've never controlled it, you know?
Oh, it's so good.
It's like I know it's kind of weird that I'll say this is my favorite Legend of Zelda game when I haven't played it per se. And you know, I for a while I gave myself shit for that, but then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. What does it mean for something to be your favorite game? Do you have to have like touch the controller, or can a game be in a good enough experience to just experience alongside someone else that it becomes your favorite anyway? And I think that the second is probably true.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you say, well, what is your favorite Legend of Zelda game you have played? In which case, the answer is Wind Waker. But the Wii U Wind Waker, not the original. I'm not. No.
Definitely
Sometimes a remaster can change a game entirely, and the original Wind Waker needed a lot of. Well, let's be real. It needed to be on a console that wasn't the GameCube.
No, honestly, I was so close. Oh, no.
Honestly, I think the original Wind Waker could benefit from a PC port as well. I
could see that, yeah.
I feel like, you know, is that going to happen? No. Never. But what I do, I wish there was a version of the game that didn't have the stuttering that occurs when a lot of particle effects go off, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, that'll take you right out of the experience where you're like, am I gonna crash? Also, Jesus, this wall is giving you some trouble.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I need to figure.
Is it like a vertical invisible wall puzzle?
Well, usually you use
interpret it.
Usually it's just you see it with the lens of truth. But because I do not have the lens of truth, I have to try and do it without it. And currently I really can't do anything in the game, so I'm just gonna do this until 4:30.
Wow.
In game. Might as well try. So I can maybe unlock this hot spring.
So you're just counting your movements, basically, and hoping for the best.
Yep. And you know what? If I don't make it, I don't make it, and that is okay. Madness is repeating the same thing over and over again, but I'm an academic, so I have to be mad. I have to be mad in some respects.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, to write the article we're writing to put the effort into writing an article at all.
Okay.
With a group of 7 people,
so the part of the, I still have to do it. I'm doing it right after this. The response we have to do for 701 this week is like, which of these pedagogies is really hard to implement? And I really want to be like, collaborative pedagogy sounds nice.
Yes. Oh my god.
But sometimes you do collaborative writing and you go crazy.
Yes. Oh my god. There's the issue. There's so many problems with collaborative instructing. Like I could go off because like while I don't have access to the book that we're supposed to read for the class this week, so I don't know what that book has said about collaborative pedagogy. But what I do know from my own personal experience is that it is dually hard because students have been taught over and over again that working with other people is a problem.
Yep.
And it's also difficult because when you do it, you have to reframe the way you're thinking about the assignments. And it's difficult because guess what? Collaborative work is relatively unwieldy and difficult to build as well. So you run into all the problems all at once, but it is a beautiful idea, you know, to get.
It sounds
together.
Really nice. It sounds really pretty, real pretty.
It's something to strive for, I think. But
I would do it if it was like a collaborative project. They talk about how like you can do projects that require people to do different things for it. So like I would say for me, like I would maybe do something where students make a web page or a website, right? And so that way you could have people doing different things, but you could still have them reflect on their rhetoric of the thing, right? You could say like, why did you choose to use these images in relation to what we're talking about in class or whatever? I think that's more effective than having everybody write a paper, because like you said, it's so ingrained in everyone that you're not supposed to write a paper together that it can be hard to overcome, especially when you're not a experienced instructor, like none of us are.
Oh yeah, it would be. I think it would be ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous, for a organization, an institutional organization, to require collaborative pedagogy from students that haven't been taught it and are not supported within it.
Oh yeah.
And thankfully, that's not a thing that UWM does, which is great. I can, all things aside, that is a fantastic thing. I quite like it. It's something I try to strive for, and the way I try to engage it is you have to come up with ways. If you have to make the assumption that you are the first class students have engaged with where collaboration is a benefit to them, then you have to make the assumption that you can't, like, you can never force it. You just have to imply it constantly.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there and like trying to develop these ways of making them do the work alongside each other as opposed to doing the work together, and hoping the co-presence is enough to jump the gap, which is entirely going to be a matter of the different classrooms and how they respond to that space.
Yeah.
And there's a risk in that. I think one of the risks of picking a style as an instructor is students don't necessarily know that style before they come into your class.
Yeah.
So you may get students that just don't respond well to that.
I love doing the class. I shouldn't say classic because I don't think people do it enough. I love being like, hey, in the education world, this is what we call it, and this is why we're doing it. And I think students, at least in how I engage with students, I have a keeping it real kind of thing with my students that I like to instill, so that works for me. Other instructors it might not work for,
No, I absolutely agree with the idea that, like, if you explain to your students why you're doing what you're doing, they will on the whole respond quite well to that. There are obviously exceptions to that rule, but like there's no reason like your pedagogy needs to be a secret. Like, it's not gonna stop working because they know it's working. Like, what the fuck? They're there to learn. They're not there to subvert you. For the most part. I mean, maybe it's different in high school. I don't know. But in certainly in college, I don't think I've run into a student that's trying to subvert my instructing in some way. Yeah.
And I'm pretty lucky because I'm a dude, so that also helps with a lot of students, unfortunately.
Yeah, I will. It's worth clarifying that I am perceived as a dude by my students, despite having clarified to them several times that I am agender. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem to like.
What's not clicking?
Seem to stop them.
Yeah. Well, right, and they're it's so ingrained in people, right? That even if someone is agender, if they have a certain voice, a certain feature, whatever, right? Even if they can understand that in the frontal cortex of their brain, it's so ingrained in people that this is what's masculine and this is what feminine, that they still will, their perception of your gender is still gonna change things,
I try to like keep in mind that I may be the first contact they've had with a queer person.
Yeah.
And I try to give them space in that regard. Admittedly, I am also kind of afraid of clarifying it sometimes. I find it to be kind of difficult, but like all this is to say that the idea that I don't have students subverting my instruction is because they perceive me as a somebody with a certain amount of privilege, which gives me a certain amount of privilege as much as it also erases my identity. Yeah. So, anybody who's watching who has had students that have subverted your instruction maliciously, God, that sucks, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it's and having worked with as a TA for a course with the same instructor and having black women BTAs versus me being TAs and hearing about the horror stories they've had, I'm part of the experiment that proves the rule. That literally everything's the same, but you just put a black woman where I am, and they get heavily disrespected and challenged.
Well, that's some bullshit. Alas, like I'm not gonna put it any other way.
Yeah.
Oh God, humanity constantly finds ways to disappoint me. Clip that, and play it at my funeral.
What doesn't disappoint me is this mini game that I'm about to do.
Hell yeah! Back at the farm.
I'm gonna deliver milk.
Oh man. Dude, the milk bar in this game is the opposite energy of the milk bar in Cats 2019, and that the milk bar in Cats 2019 makes me deeply uncomfortable, and the milk bar in this game makes me very happy.
And it's so obviously supposed to be it's so obviously like an actual bar and not a milk bar, you know?
Oh,
which
God.
I love.
Yeah. Just somebody like in the future serious play people who are way more dedicated to editing than we are right now, please juxtapose on the screen the milk bar and the milk bar, and or better yet, put the fucking Majora's Mask milk bar music over the Cats 2019 milk bar. Oh yeah, that's the shit right there.
Oh, you know what's cool? Sorry, speaking of Z targeting, these guys you can Z target, which is cool, right? Because they're trying to present themselves as like these. They're dressed up in Garrow masks, and Garrows are like ghosts from beyond the grave. And so like by being able to Z target them, it's like, hey, these aren't actually ghosts. These are just real life men who are trying.
They're
to be
tanky
sneaky.
boys though. Jeez.
Yeah, you can't like get rid of them. You just have to fight.
Oh, you can only shove them back.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, well,
we
you know,
made
that's some good masks there, keeping them safe from hundreds of arrows. Well, not hundreds, but you know, exaggeration is a rhetorical.
Yes, it's a rhetorical choice. Okay, what do I get?
I don't know.
Ice arrows.
What do you want?
I knew I was
Ice
getting
arrows?
ice arrows. Yeah.
Nice.
Because the gossip stones will tell you what you get, and so one of them said I'll get ice arrows for this, which is good. Hopefully that means I can do things now.
Yes.
I don't
Hopefully.
think it does.
Well, do you need the hook shot for whatever you need the ice arrows for?
Yes, potentially. Let's see. I did that.
You know,
I did
maybe
that.
you can't.
Ooh, I should have done the honey darling stuff. Is it past 10 now? No, it's not. Perfect. I think technically I only have to do the honey darlings once, but I'm gonna double check. I might as well do it as long as I'm here.
Yeah, why not, dude? Have fun. Do shit. It's not like if you're not trying to do things optimally, then like just play the way you want to.
Yeah. I am not a speedrunner, and that is okay.
Absolutely. I do love putting Janelle and Eric in the same stream and watching them butt heads. Like, that's a pastime right there. If you know, put the completionist next to the speedrunner and watch them have exact opposite experiences with games.
See, and for me, completion, I like doing completion in some games, but it also depends on what completion is. So like for me, like Breath of the Wild, for example, I completed all of the shrines because I like solving puzzles, and like I associate that with Legend of Zelda, so that I wanted to complete all the way. But like I didn't need every single outfit. Like to me, that didn't really matter.
Sure.
You know? So like I can be completionist in some ways, but also only for things I want to be completionist for. I'm not.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think that's how most people are. But other people, you know, they want to complete everything. More power to them.
Yeah, I have my Steam library sorted by how much I've completed the games in it, because eventually I would like them all to be completed. But like, I don't have time for that. This is like the for the 4 people who have stuck with us for the whole session, oh my God, thank you guys so much. But also, like I don't know how you guys feel, chat, but I'm never gonna have time to complete everything. I'm not gonna have time to watch half the things in my life I'm gonna want to watch. And it's like somebody who loves media, that is actually kind of scary. Like,
I love it.
It's a I want to have all those experiences, and there's just not enough time to have them.
Yeah, I get that. For me, it's like I find it kind of comforting that it's like, oh, everyone has like their own little thing, and like now especially, right? There's such a diversity and it's such a wealth of things to watch and play, and like I like that people are now able to kind of choose what speaks to them in ways that are different from before, and I think that's cool.
Perfect, David. Perfect.
Okay, I only have to do this.
Incredible job. Also, I just want to say I love how gamey that space is. Like that's such a that's a space that is such like a game thing. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay, can't do that. I think, Ren, I'm gonna have to do the... Wait, the pendant's not important, right?
Which
the pendant that I give to Andrew, that's not... I don't need to worry about getting that, right?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but
I don't think
probably not.
Because I can't do the Couples Mask anyways. All right, so I'm going to go forward to tomorrow, because right now the only 2 things I can get are the Curiosity Shop and the shooting gallery down at the swamp, which I definitely do not want to do.
Well, that means there's got to be something good there, right?
Maybe not.
Not the part you don't want to do, but in one of those 2 areas, there has to be something good. That's how things work, right?
Yeah.
That's.
Let's hope so. Actually, and so there's I'm gonna do this now. I might as well, since that'll be the last time I'm streaming it for this thing. But when you make your game, it also makes a website where you can... It has like a page for the seed that you're playing, and you can go over to the tracker and see where everything is, according to location or according to item. So like I can just go check out the Southern Swamp archery and see what's there.
So like if you ever get stuck.
No.
What is it? Oh no.
The archery is the fire arrows. I don't want to do it. I'm going to try.
You're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have it to.
Yeah.
Or you can just call it here if you wanted to.
Honestly, if I don't get them by the time it's 6 o'clock, I'm calling it, and we're just gonna end it because I don't want to do it.
Well, and we'll be back tonight. Special. We're not special. What am I talking about? It's our. It's really a tradition when you think about it. Like, really, it is our flagship show that we're doing tonight. The one that everybody remembers exactly what it's called.
I was giving you nooch. I was being neutral. I was being nooch, as they say in the drag. Giving it nooch. It's short for neutral.
Really, it's gonna be the most important stream we've ever streamed. Like
you're gonna have to hold down the fort for that, because I'm gonna be my voice is sore from speaking so much right now. No, I'm excited to play Uno.
Let the goose go, damn it.
Okay, all right. I need to focus, and I'm gonna win.
Quiet. I won't make anything except for I will stare at the screen.
I'm already not doing well. Guys, I'm failing this. Okay, I'm gonna give up the ghost, potentially. Yep, okay. We're just gonna take the next minute to relax, and I'm not gonna try, because I've already failed. So we're just gonna relax.
What kind of score do you have to get to succeed here, then?
You have to get perfect. You have to hit everything.
Oh, God, that's annoying. Can you Z-target here?
No. No, and this one and the other one you cannot Z-target. So I need to be down lower for these. I was too high for these in the initial.
You know, can you play this mouse and keyboard? Because this might be easier mouse and keyboard.
I think you technically can, but...
I mean, I guess, like, what is it within the purviews of the game for you to... Oh, hey, that's 5 in a row. Maybe you just have to, like, not pay any attention to it. Maybe you just got this. You just got to not overthink it. God, I bet that guy up in the tree people just forget about, and, like, that gets them the first time.
Yeah, and there's another one up above the rock here, too. Right next to the moon. The moon barreling down. You can't even escape the moon here.
Oh, God, he is, like, right there. Jesus Christ. Dude, you need some dental work done.
You gotta get TheraBreath. I got TheraBreath, and it's working very well for me. As a consummate Midwesterner, I have terrible, terrible smelling breath, so... Try TheraBreath.
Serious Play, brought to you by TheraBreath.
Yeah, TheraBreath, if you need a sponsor, call me up. I'll do it for you.
Nice. There we go. That's much better than last time. You just gotta get in the groove, man. Get in the zone. You got a minute left here. Don't sweat it. It can't be that much to shoot. Okay. He'll come back. It's fine. You got 37 seconds. You're doing good. You got 37 seconds. You can do a lot in 37 seconds. You can,
that's true.
You know, ruin in the day of social media. You can make like a shit take in 37 seconds. That's a lot of effort.
Yeah, you can have the world hate you.
Yeah, 37 seconds. It's 37 seconds to burn.
Does that count?
Oh, God. I don't know.
Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay. I'm going to try once more.
Hey, well, that was one away. Right?
Kind of.
What does kind of mean? Is there like an Uber enemy?
There we go.
Nice. A little more patience and you got him.
Shoot. I missed that wolf.
Oh, they came at the same time. That's rough. So I'm guessing one of them comes in, starts coming in at the end of the second rotation of those guys, and the other one comes in at the time. So that's interesting. Nice. Good hit. Good hit. Nice, nice. Clean shot on the wolf.
Shoot.
And you got Boulder Boy. Do you have one more rotation of birds? Is that right?
Yes.
There they are. Here they come. A few seconds. Maybe the latency will line up there, make me look like a real idiot. Another wolf. Where the hell? Why?
Hey, I did it.
Right. Nice.
What? Said I didn't have it. That was rude.
What are you missing?
Maybe I missed a bird or something?
Maybe.
Oh, it's because I missed the wolf, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, then wolves are high priority targets, man. This does not look like it's fun to control, by the way.
No.
Nice. At least the wolves have really big hitboxes.
Yes.
Oh, good shot. Yeah, as long as you hit all the enemies that, like, come in and leave, you should be in really good shape here. These guys do not seem like they are so hard to fight. Nice. I don't even think you meant to hit that guy.
Okay. From the birds. There's that.
Birds, come on. Oh, nice. 18 seconds.
Oh, come on. No! I'm gonna fail!
Aw.
Okay. We're gonna do this again. I want to win.
Here we are, the end of every stream. David loses
Literally.
his shit and will not stop playing.
Literally.
all right, I see what you're doing here. Yeah, I think the trick here is get good, don't fucking miss.
Yep.
Which is, it's not great. Oh god, this game, oh my
What
god,
the?
that arrow does not go where you think it's gonna go.
I'm mad. I'm so mad.
Oh, that wolf is, how did you miss him? What the fuck?
I'm so mad.
And he doesn't come back, right? That's it. That's the run.
I think so. I think that's it.
Oh,
And that
jeez.
bird got away too.
Damn.
Or maybe.
Damn, looks like he got away.
There, we got him.
Oh, he does come back. Okay, cool. I guess the wolves are like the ones that really don't come back. Yeah, you just always got to be ready at a moment's notice to like switch off of whatever your previous target was onto a higher value
and like
target.
as soon as you miss a
Hoping
target,
this
you are SOL.
Yes, I mean, if anything, the only thing that like this is like not unfair, but what it needs is like a skip button or like a reset button, you know? Because like, oh my god, I can't imagine actually doing this on the fucking, you know, god.
On the N64.
Yeah, with the fucking worst controller ever designed by mankind.
Yes, as much as I love it, I can admit it is terrible.
Oh, it's bad time.
I'm so mad.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Where's that bird? Bird's coming back. Okay. I keep missing him.
But yeah, well, oh my god. Yeah, he's just got like, you gotta, I think the way to go is to like hit him when he's coming in instead of when he's going out, just so you know you like have the time to hit him. Here we are strategizing about how to do the shooting gallery in Majora's Mask.
Which I wouldn't have to
You
do
gotta-
if these stupid
Look, man.
fire arrows makes me mad.
You gotta predict his movements more, dude. You can't.
You know what? It's gonna be past 6. I don't care. I'm doing it. I need to wipe my hands off because my hands are very sweaty right now. I'm gonna wash them and I'll be back.
This is gonna be every fucking week. Oh no. All right. Well, since David gave the shit away, I'll give you guys the scoop on tonight, the secret scoop. All right, the secret scoop is that we're going to do a April Fool's Day joke called the dinner area, and we're gonna play Uno. That's the secret. Don't tell anyone, okay?
Let's do this. Okay.
Come on, you got this, dude.
There we go. There we go.
Oh god, Steam froze. All right, there we go. I'm adding a game to my Steam catalog, an executable to my Steam catalog, and as you can imagine, I have a lot. Wow, I have this a lot on my computer. God, I forgot about Handbrake. Never mind. That's just really specific.
I think I might have lost anyways because I think I missed that bird.
No, you got this, dude. That's it. I'm not even looking right now, and I'm sure. There's no way, right? Like, you got this. I'm being a little bit pedantic for fun.
It's okay.
But...
It's okay.
God, you know, one of the things I absolutely hate about the current world that we live in as far as, like, the way that games are managed is that there's no, like I'm sure there's, like, a third-party program that will aggregate all of your, the games you own across different platforms, but, like I bought the Uno game for tonight on the Ubisoft store because it's on sale right now, and I didn't feel like paying $20 for Uno, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, which I mean, like, obviously, that was fine. I was like, oh, I'll drop, you know, $7 for Uno for a night, and we'll just parsec it, and it'll be fine. But, like, man, I would love to use Steam's service for that, but no. I also miss the days of, like, the Nintendo DS Mario Kart, where, like, I could just, like, everybody could play the game on a few levels as Shy Guy. Dude, so many times I was riding to school on the bus with my friends, and we would just play the fucking Mario Kart DS game. DS download play was a genius idea that was criminally underutilized.
I agree. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, and like I know that it runs counter to the kind of like, oh well, we could just get them to buy multiple copies of the game if they all had to own one, and that's obviously the mentality. But man, DS download play was the shit, and it only worked for a few games, but the games it did work for, perfect, so good. I've played so much Mario Kart DS, but I've only played 4 levels of it because I wasn't the one who owned Mario Kart.
Yep. Oh, come on. No!
You can do it. You can do it. Just get that long range shot. You got this.
All right, I'm not
Wait
gonna win. I'm not gonna win.
Do it.
It's
Oh,
okay.
you ran away. And you only got 9 seconds.
Yeah. All right, so I'm ending in failure, and I'm gonna go off and cry. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is going to be, unfortunately, the end of Majora's Mask Randomizer. Thank you for joining me and chatting about it. So next week, we're going to be starting a game called Pokemon Unbound, which is a difficulty mod / hack thing for Pokemon Fire Red. So,
Ooh, Fire
yeah.
Red. Oh,
Yes,
you're going to bring
this'll be
nostalgia
fun.
out. Yeah.
It's not based in Kanto. It's like a new region, but it uses the Fire Red engine. Literally, Fire Red engine. So, thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you at like 8 o'clock, potentially 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock?
8:30 CST.
8:30 CST. Oh, God.
And don't tell anybody about it. It's our little secret.
I'm going to have to read and do a discussion post before then. So, all right. See you later, everyone.
See ya.